Thanks everyone for joining us. So as you know, there's 4 repeated sessions now. So we've got quite a lot to cram in 30 minutes. So we're going to do a quick element on a bit of a deep dive on what we showed around the IoT integration into ServiceNow. Then I'll do a quick demo. So we're going to try and keep this less presentations, more demo. Then I'll do a quick demo on Service Portal and Virtual Agent and show that, and also show a little bit around the designer as well. And then I'll do a little bit as well, so you'll have 2 sessions straight with me, which will be around IT operations and operation intelligence. Just give you an overview of what that does, how that works, where you get the data from, and a very quick demo, because I don't have a massive amount of live demo data on that. And then Adam will finish off with a very quick demo of something that's not IT for a change, which will be around HR service delivery. So first of all, I'll hand over to Adam.
Thanks, Mark, and welcome back, everybody. So did everybody see the Alexa demo that we did this morning? Excellent, good. So really just to show you quickly how that's built, so how the skill is built, and then how that interacts within ServiceNow. Again, I'll keep this high level. We're certainly not going to start digging into any code. And then I'll just spend a few minutes showing you how the Raspberry Pi was also configured and set up to push information and photos into ServiceNow. And again, apologies, I was going to do a live demo, but I got some power issues with making this work, so I think it's probably a UK power issue. So apologies for that. But I can show you the concept of how that sets up, and I can also show you the automation within ServiceNow. So I'll show you that first, and then we'll switch back to Mark. Now, apologies if I'm twisting my neck a bit, but the only screen shown at the moment is on that one there. So you can see the first thing that we did was actually to make this work was to design the Alexa skill. So nice and easy to set up, and I'll take you through it. It is obviously a dev skill, because as Mark mentioned, at the moment this is very much the art of the possible. How can we make this happen? And it's just illustrating some of the innovations around people being able to create this type of innovation and put it into ServiceNow. So as you can see, this is a dev count, purely one that I set up, and I'll just show you a few key points. So as we go into the develop code, so you can see it's really easy to build. So there's the skill, the name that we use to invoke, and let me just mute Alexa, otherwise she'll be going crazy. To invoke Alexa, you heard me say Alexa our ServiceNow, so that's the name there. You can see how easy that is to set up. And then here we have the intents. So this is where we start to build in things like, you'll see, common situations that people would want to communicate with the organization. So things like check statuses, create incidents, create security incidents, and those are the intents that we use to build that up. You can see going through the list all down there, what's happening today, what's happening in the outages. So that was one that I showed earlier in terms of, what's happening today, and what is the information around that. So, tell me about my requests, and that's built in there. And there's other details that we'd go through, and we would just tell it the endpoint, so what's the ServiceNow instant and how to communicate back to ServiceNow. So you can see, very easy, very simple to set up, not a huge amount of work involved to making that happen. And then in the back end, so if I log into my ServiceNow instance where I've got this configured, so you'll see predefined there, we've got like a built on top of the platform a ServiceNow application. So you can see the Amazon Echo application there, and you can see where it's calling the intents. If I show you one that we looked at earlier, just to give you a feeling for how it is. So here's all the intent. So cancel. So when I want to stop communicating with Alexa and actually come out of that ServiceNow skill, that's what I'll use to communicate with that. And if we find the one that I did use as a example, what's happening today? I think that's the one I used. We can go in there and see some of the information coded behind into that configuration. So communicating scripted back into, so it's saying, are there any incidents? Tell me about the changes. And so this definitely isn't a coding workshop, so I'm not expecting you to read any of this. But just to give you a feeling for how it connects and integrates back into there, and you can see that working quite easily in there. So, very easy to set up, very quick to set up and build, and then come up with your own. Similar to when we look at the virtual agent, yes, there's conversations out of the box ready to go, that the obvious ones: create incident, create case, check status, but also you can build your own channels of communication in there very simply. So that's looking at the Alexa side of things, how that's built. If we flick to let's make this full screen. So this is where what I wanted to show you today was actually the demo I was going to do was actually have this plugged in, polling for motion, and then actually when it picks up motion, it would take a picture of us or the audience, and then you would see within 30 seconds that creates a incident and a case inside ServiceNow. But as I say, because I can't get that powered up, I can't show you that. But if you think about how easy that is, all the Raspberry Pi is doing is it just has some code, hardly any lines of code, to just say, keep checking for motion. If you don't see any motion, don't do anything. The moment you see motion, take a picture and save it to the desktop of this device. As simple as that. And then there's a simple script polling in the background to say, once you get a picture on that desktop, simply push it to a table in ServiceNow. So when it does detect a picture, a new record gets created in ServiceNow with the details, some timestamp information, and the photo is sent into ServiceNow. So that's fine. We have a record automatically created without anybody doing anything, with a photo and some information. So, like I say, that's good, but to me, that's like just the very start. Then what we can start to do is bring in functionality using our flow designer to automate certain transactions within that case and records that's been created. And that can be anything we want. So in my scenario, when I did this, just to set this up, I was thinking along the lines of a security incident. So it's taken a photo. I think saw an example earlier. It's taken a photo of potentially an intruder or somebody that shouldn't be in a location at a certain point in time. So what we can then do is use Flow Designer to say, well, once that's created, first of all, I want you to go ahead and automatically update that record. So whatever it might be, update it with a priority, put in a short description, put in a assignment, assign it to the right person, and then actually create a security incident. So I've got my initial record, but I then want you to go and create a security incident, and you can see there how very easily and intuitive it is to use the Flow Designer tool to create this kind of automation. So just a simple example: create a record, put some information in there, then create a security incident, assign it to the right people, make sure they've got the right information with the photo included and priority, and you can see we're capturing the source, so IoT, PIR there, so the source has been captured. That took me like 30 seconds to build that, but what that's just showing is you can just keep going and going and automate, and then actually get down to the point where you're orchestrating activity off the back of that. So that was just a really quick demonstration of how the Alexa was built using the skills, and then some of the coding in the instance, and how we push data from the Raspberry Pi into ServiceNow. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Adam. So just for those that aren't aware of ServiceNow, and more importantly of Flow Designer, so that came out 2 releases ago. It's looking like it's really a simpler way of being able to do workflow. So what we're starting to see is we're starting to use this more and more. Workflow won't go away, so don't panic if you've written loads of workflows. Workflow won't go away, but this is definitely a new way of work for us. It's easier. The theory is you don't necessarily need to be an admin or skilled coder to do this. As those who already have ServiceNow, we're very much trying to go down this no-code, low-code sort of route. So that's really what that's for. You'll start to see more and more applications start to use it as we go through the different releases. So, for example, in London, we're starting to use this a little bit for things like event management as well. So, again, workflow's not going away, but you'll start to see this being used, an integration hub, which is sort of tied to it to go outside ServiceNow with various spokes that you create. They will start to become more common and start to look at the new way of work around workflow and orchestration. So what I'm going to do now is very quickly go on to, he says, hopefully, I'm wondering why his screen hasn't done anything, virtual agent. So one of the things we're just going to cover in the next 5 minutes, because it is really quick. The whole point of this is it's really simple, really quick. So the virtual agent requires a number of conversations. You can see those conversations there. But what does a virtual agent actually look at? So I have another persona running here, Joe employee. Anyone who's run ServiceNow knows that he is a person who exists. And what you'll notice is when this service portal comes back, and I probably should have preloaded it, just in case the Wi-Fi is running slow, then what you'll see from this perspective is this is my portal, it's demo data, so apologies if there's this odd error where I've changed a few things and not necessarily done it right. Down the bottom here, you have that widget that we spoke about this morning. So that widget is the virtual agent. So very simply, you just click on that little widget, and it will open up. And it will sort itself out. It's got all the history and things like that. And then you've got various things to be able to go. So you can type if you know what you want. So if you want to ask a question, you can type it in straight away. Or alternatively, if you click on all topics, then it basically shows all the topics that are active. So all those conversations that are in the designer that are actually active. So if I want to pick something, for example, if I want to request leave, so we're going into HR here rather than away from IT, you can say, when do you want to go on leave? Well, tomorrow. Yep. And then it will go through this conversation. When do you want to return? I'll say Friday, even though I probably don't want to return on Friday. And then you'll see from this perspective. So this is basically saying, why do you want to, you're looking at taking it from this date. Why do you want to do it? Okay, I'll say it's that one. And then it will basically go off and create that request. Also, it will give you any help as well. So if there's any documents saying this is how you can get help, or this is how, from a corporate perspective, we have benefits which will help guide you through this, or we have something that will tell you, actually you allowed this amount of time off to do this, it will prompt all that as well. So that's all part of this conversation. So then if I click on yes, that will now create a case. So you can see from what I was talking about this morning, this isn't just about answering questions, it's about that guidance, that flow all the way through from that perspective. And again, it will go off, it will do that, and it will go through that case. So again, it's asking for a few more things, so I'll just type gobbledygook like I normally do, to be honest. And then we'll see that this basically works its way through. So once it's created that, then again, you can ask it more questions and all those. I'll leave that running in the background while it creates that case. So just to give you an idea of what these topics look like, you can see here there's a whole range of different topics. So we have ones which are already in the system. So you should hopefully not have to change these, but if you do, you've got the ability to do that. So if we go into this, you can see you've got the HR one, and we can actually view. We can't change the topic flow because we're basically in the record already. And what you can do if you want to zoom in is we can zoom in probably a bit too much. And we can see what that topic flow is. So you've always got start, you've always got an end, and then you can see these are the questions that it basically asked me. And there's a few little bits of checks in, that I've not put the end date before the start date and all those sort of things. Choose reasons, then it will do a decision tree, and then it'll carry on going off around questions. So you can see these are basically all the things it did. Yeah. Now, just very quickly, if you want to see how to do that, I'll just pick one that I've been messing around with. So this isn't one that exists on yours. It's called Order a Phone. Give it a short description. You notice it's not active. So because it's not active, this isn't view, it's edit. So I can now go in and edit this topic. So you can see I've basically got some different things here. So start is usually just a conversational message, like so. You then got some different things on the side here. So in this case, it was a static choice of what phone do you want. So in this case, I've given it 3 phones, or 2 phones and a BlackBerry, depending on how you look at it. You can see here you've got all different things, and you just drag and drop them across. So you'll notice I've put a carousel in there. If I wanted to put a carousel in other places, I just drag it. You notice you get little plus signs. You just drop it, and then you can put some context into it. That context can be relatively simple, or you can start putting code in there as well. So you'll notice if I go back to this one, you'll notice I have various things in here. Plus, I also have around some prompts. We have some code in there that we can look at as well. So under a condition, we've got some code in there which will actually look at doing things. So again, it can be as simple or as complex as you're capable or wanting to be able to make it. But the whole point is, don't just rely on what's out of the box. It's you can make this yourself as well. Yeah. And actually, if anybody knows the ServiceNow developer website called developer.servicenow.com, there's actually some training on how to do this, and there's a few labs that we acknowledge that you can look at the lab guides that were created and give you an idea of how to create these sort of things as well. So that was a very quick intro and actual overview. It is relatively simple, but if you want to do really complex things, then you actually probably need to do a bit of JavaScript inside it. But you can do simple things without using scripting. Okay? So that is a virtual agent. So we've talked about two different types of automation now. So we've talked about IoT and automation into the platform. We've talked about the virtual agent and how that can help the end employer. What we're going to quickly talk about now, and I'm just going to go to a very quick slide deck on this, around operational intelligence. So operational intelligence has actually been in the platform for 3 releases now. It sits hand in hand with event management. And what it allows you to do is basically not only bring in events, which are probably self-explanatory, you can guess what they do. And events, we basically create alerts, and alerts then are things that we action in ServiceNow. So we don't actually action events, we action alerts. What this does is it actually brings in a level of intelligence to that as well from whatever you're trying to monitor. So just to give you an idea, ultimately what we're trying to do is make things quicker, been the theme throughout the day, faster resolutions to problems, but actually that third one's quite important. We want to start to be a little bit more proactive rather than reactive all the time. So what we'll see with operational intelligence, and I'm not going to go through all the slides, but this just gives you an idea of what it's doing. You can see it's tied by event management. Anyone that sees ServiceNow and event management, that is our event management dashboard. From that perspective, what we're doing is we're basically consolidating all these events into one place. That's the point of that. But what we're also doing is, as well as doing that and then mapping those events to CIs, we're starting to bring in more of the operational intelligence side of things. So we're bringing in metrics from servers as well, and we're mapping those to the CIs as well. And what it can start to do is it starts to see that. You start to bring in your typical business service impact, which we've already seen in ServiceNow. It's been in ServiceNow for a long time. And that's basically when you double-click and go into the event itself. But what we're bringing on top of that is the ability to be able to bring in these operational metrics. So there's 3 basic outputs from operational metrics as well as what's happening internally to the system. So what you're doing here is you can see these are the out-of-the-box metrics that we can bring in into ServiceNow. So by default, System Center was the first one we did, and now we've expanded that into things like SolarWinds and those sort of areas. It all runs through the mid server. So for those of you who don't know what a mid server is, a mid server is the way that ServiceNow as a cloud instance talks into a data center. Yeah? So you need a mid server. Now one thing to bear in mind, if you understand ServiceNow from old, the mid server does a lot more than it used to do. Yeah? So you need to always check the doc site because it grows in time. Yeah? So the actual size of these boxes gets slightly bigger because the amount of work this is doing is actually quite a lot. It is recommended that for operational intelligence, you have a mid server that is dedicated to do operational intelligence. Yeah. So what it's basically doing is it's taking that data into the mid server. The mid server is doing some work on it, and then it's passing it back to the, and it's doing some work around the analytics. Then it's passing it back to the ServiceNow instance, which is then tying it into the CMDB and those sort of areas. And over time, what you start to see is you get this anomaly heat map, always easy to say, where it starts to look at certain things that are coming in, certain CIs, and gives you an idea of whether they're working well or not. You've got a metrics explorer, which allows you to get that extra information. So it's adding more info to the same area. So you can click from this in the event management dashboard to then look at the metrics. So you've got that alternative view. And usually when you're into operations, that's the sort of thing you want to be able to get more information on. And then you have anomaly alerts. So by default, these anomaly alerts are separate to event management type alerts. Yeah? But what you'll see is you can start mapping those across. You can map those into events as well. So you can create an event off an anomaly. Okay. So this is ultimately the way this works. And just to give you an idea, this is just the architecture, the way it works. So what we're bringing into this from a ServiceNow perspective is a new methodology. So we're bringing in a new time series database to be able to look at this data that you've got coming in. And that allows us to process this data really quickly. So when you go for the operational intelligence, you get a second database on the instance, which is separate to the rest of ServiceNow, still on the same instance, but allows it to process specifically around this type of data to move forward with. So what we'll see is, if we move forward, is that will basically start to allow you to look at these data. What we also need to do, or you need to look at doing at the same sort of time, is working with the different types of alerts that we've got. So you're bringing those alerts and events in, and we have ways of using machine learning to be able to make those alerts more meaningful. So I'm not going to spend too long on this, but we've got different techniques, and I'm just going to show this one slide. So this is all around the different types of analysis that we do within the event management operation intelligence side of things. So we do some temporal analysis. We actually look at some of the topology type analysis. So understanding that business service, again, is quite key to ServiceNow. We don't really want to look at individual CIs. We want to look at the whole stack as a business service, because we want this to be meaningful to a business. But again, going back to what we were talking about agent intelligence, it's really all about prioritization. That's quite a key thing. You've got all these things coming in. How do I prioritize what I want to do? And if you don't understand what business service, or how many business services a single CI is affecting when it fails, then you'll struggle to be able to get the priorities correct. So again, this is why all this is quite clever. You can do rule-based correlations, so we've done that in the past, and they can be automatic rules or they can be manual rules that you step through as a wizard. And you can do some sort of semi-supervised learning. So this is basically the way it will try to learn itself, but you can actually do some feedback on that as well as the way that works. So ultimately, from an operational intelligence point of view, what you sort of get to see is, I just moved to an instance, give me a second. Not that one. Is this sort of thing from an anomaly map point of view. So this is just one of the screens. We've not got time to go in detail onto all of it. But if there's something that's, thinks really good, then speak to one of the guys from Capgemini, and we can set up a one-to-one session to be able to do these as WebExes. That's the same for any of this. This is really just touching the edge, but if there's anything you want to go into detail, we're here, Capgemini are here, we can assist you on that side of things. So you can see in this case, I've got a server, I've opened it up already. You can see from the various things, it's not in a particularly healthy state. It is demo data, so it's meant to look like that. It's not just the fact the world is not good. But you can see here, at certain times of the day, is it good or bad? So we have this anomaly score. This anomaly score is from 0 to 10. 10 is really bad. 0 to 4 is normally we tend to ignore that. Yeah. You can change those parameters. But you can start to understand what this data is. What you can also do is do the Metrics Explorer, which I spoke about. So if you go into the Metrics Explorer, and we open up this server, for example, what you'll see is there's some data behind it. We can drag and drop this across. And if we want to add something from somewhere else, we can either add it as a replacement chart. We can save these. So if it's something you look at every time you're doing some analysis, you can save these. And it just gives you context based on time. Yeah. And something new that we've added in London is the ability to filter this. So rather than just drag it and then try to find it yourself, you can actually filter it so it looks for certain types of metrics and areas like that. So just making it a little bit simpler. But ultimately, what we try to do with this is make that ability to do diagnostics easier, the ability for the machine learning to understand when things are happening, why they're happening, and then ultimately predict based on what it sees as this is what led up to it first time. It will give that, and it will give a confidence score. So basically, it will say, I think this is going to fail in X amount of time, and I'm 60% confident, or 70. I've never seen 100, to be honest, but that's the sort of thing that it's doing. It's assisting. That's what it's about. So that's some more of the machine learning, particularly around IT operations management. And the final thing we wanted to talk about, mainly because it includes now the virtual agent as well, is away from IT. We talk about IT a lot, but ServiceNow does a lot more than IT. So we do customer service management, we do project management around ITBM, and we do HR. And HR is what Adam is now going to do a very quick demo on.
Thanks, Mark. Just get plugged in.
Two screens. No, that's your Apple one. You've not got it on there.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, so as Mark mentioned, it's absolutely right to bring in HR in terms of some innovations that have happened with our HR product across the platform. And just to take just a few moments and a few seconds to take you through some of the features and capabilities directly within HR and some of that innovation as well. What we've got here that I've logged into is the HR customer portal. And I'm currently, because we're doing this in kind of demo mode, I'm logged in as a persona called Maria. And Maria is a manager. And the first thing really to take you through when you look at that portal is it's a clean, intuitive, modern-looking portal that's completely tailored and personalized for whoever logs in. So that's something that happens throughout our platform. So what that means is when Maria logs in, as it understands who she is and what she is, where she is on her journey in the organization. So for example, it can see that she's a manager and has been there for 2 years and is presenting information and context around that individual. So it's a way of targeting information without just having too much information on a screen, you know, the entire information for all the organization tailored for that individual to log in so they can see information that's relevant to them. And this really is the front layer for the employees to go to and find out information and be served about their HR needs in the organization, which is really important because, you know, I think it's fair to say a lot of organizations and potentially HR departments are working in a fairly legacy way, an old-fashioned way of working. So we've mentioned Outlook and emails a few times today. It's not necessarily the most efficient way to work. So we bring this together for the employee to get all the information they need. And if I just show you quickly, you know, some of the features. We've talked a lot about virtual agent today, so you can see we have the ability to have the virtual agent down there. Mark's demoed that, so I'm not going to go into that too much, but I could search out the box conversations, things like Mark showed booking leave, or if I've got a pay discrepancy. And this is really important because if employees have got problems or pay is wrong, that's very, very sensitive and it needs to get fixed quickly. So, you know, if it is a Sunday afternoon and there's an issue with their pay slip, they don't necessarily want to wait till Monday to come in and start phoning people up or sending emails. They can be served via the virtual agent and find out about their pay discrepancy or whatever it might be. So it changes the culture and dynamics of an organization to be able to use the virtual agent. And of course, one thing we talked about, I certainly mentioned earlier about having different channels. It's not about saying use the virtual agent for everything every time. Yes, it has its place and it's very, very powerful and useful and adds value to the organization. But if in certain scenarios you need to pull out of that chatbot, we have the ability to connect to a live agent as well. And you can actually transfer your conversation. You know, you can say, actually, in this scenario, I need to talk to somebody. So you can be directed to a live agent and bring all of that previous chat with you. And then we're looking at things certainly within the roadmap to be able to actually then go the other way. So potentially an agent could help live for a short period of time and then hand you back into the virtual agent. So you can start to see how this would begin to work. So if I come out of the virtual agent for now. And you think about innovations within a HR organization, I think, you know, having the ability to offer employees a virtual agent is something that would certainly add value. So we've got our search first type experience up here. If I'm just going to use, I'm going to show you a couple. So the story is that Maria is a manager and wants to find out about a member of her team who is going on maternity leave. So we can simply come in here and do a quick search. And we're presented with some information, graphical information. Again, this goes to some of the new features in London called knowledge blocks, only showing information that's relevant to that employee. So it's showing a US-based knowledge article. If I was UK-based, it would show the UK article. So I just get that targeted information. I'm able to consume that nice and easily and, you know, rate that knowledge information as we go. Now, one key area when we talk about HR and we start bringing in the platform, the ServiceNow platform, is the ability to collaborate with other organizations. And onboarding is you know, one of the great cases to discuss around that. So, you know, we've all been through an onboarding process, whether that's as a manager or as an employee, and certainly, you know, I know my experiences of going through, and it can be a very frustrating experience. Multiple touch points, multiple departments to talk to. So I need a laptop, I need a pass for the building, I need to sort my payout. Can take a long time to get that up and running, and frustrating for the hiring manager and the employee, because what we want is that employee to turn up on the first day and actually be productive because they're excited to join the organisation, not turn up and start signing forms to get access to buildings. So that's when we bring in the onboarding. And you can see what this does as the hiring manager. This gives everything for the hiring manager, so Maria in this example, to do it in one place. So well, I've got a minute. Let me see if I can do this really quickly just to get to the next screen. So if I'm going to request a new hire, we can put them in, put the name in, put the personal email in. Now this is important because this is going to send what we call to-do actions before the employee joins. So they'll be able to log on to the portal and actually start signing documentation, reading and signing documentation, adding their bank statement, bank details before they join, so they're ready to go. So that's why we asked for that there. How long have I got? 30 seconds. Let's just put in an email address. I can't see what I'm typing. Start date. What's the start date? Employment type. And all of this information will drive different activities within the new hire process for Maria. So we select the location, some additional information there. So do we need a work visa? Do we need relocation assistance? And we start that onboarding process. And this is where we start to bring in automation and collaboration within the platform. So this will kick off, once I go through the final part of the request, the ability for me to say what laptop I need, what device they need, whether they need a phone, what kind of location do they need. And it will start spreading those tasks throughout the I've run out of time. So it will start running out through the rest of the devices, and it'll even go to the level of, okay, for your employee that you're hiring, they have the options of whether it's a Windows device or a MacBook and this type of, so I can drill into that sort of detail. Bottom line, what I'm showing you here is this is automation throughout the enterprise, throughout the organization, keeping it all together so it's a seamless experience for the hire and very much a consumerized like experience for the employee. So key feature there in terms of our HR product. I've definitely run out of time, but if you do want to talk any more about that or anything we've spoke about, please do reach out to Mark and myself, but thank you for your time.